Today, I'm going to be sitting down with someone who's got a vast amount of experience in basic entrepreneurship. He was in the corporate world, he made the shift across. So it's always interesting and a great insight to see exactly how the journey went, where they were, where they are today. And you can learn a lot from this experience and everything that we're going to discuss today. So first, without further ado, I welcome Ajmal Mushtaq. He is the CEO of Boss Pizza and Mushtaq's restaurant. So he's got a lot of insight into the corporate world, and again, he made the jump into entrepreneurship. So it'll be great to see and hear today, basically from him, of experiences and how he's had the highs and lows. So yeah, without further ado, Ajmal Mushtaq, thanks for coming in this conversation today.
Welcome, delighted to be here.
Brilliant. Right, the first thing that intrigued me about you was your academic background.
Yep.
Bachelor's in law, master's in corporate finance and in accounting.
Yep.
How did that come about?
Okay, so I left school with no higher education. I worked as a waiter in a restaurant for 4 or 5 years. I was fed up being treated like a loser and an idiot. And I thought, you know what, I want to go and compete at the top tier of the UK job market, and that's like in financial services in London. So what do I need to do to secure my chances of getting into those companies? And one of the best degrees you could have is a law degree, in my opinion. And then from there, I studied a master's in finance and then a master's in management accountancy. So I basically maximised the chances of getting into Accenture, which was the number one company I wanted to work for. And that started me off in my journey.
That's incredible. So how many years did you spend in that corporate world?
So nearly 10 years.
10 years. And
Yeah.
I'm guessing at the highest level here, right?
Yeah, so this is working in the head offices of some of the major banks in the UK, operating at senior management level within a lot of the big FTSE 100 companies, delivering multi-million pound projects.
Wow. Okay.
So it was a top tier jet set lifestyle, first class travel, eating the best restaurants, the best hotels, the best conference, you name it. It was just amazing.
So then it begs the question, why would you move across to entrepreneurship? With all the downsides, with the headaches, the stress, why would you do that?
Yeah. Okay, so I thought I was a good consultant.
Okay.
Right. And it's very. Oh, sorry. So I thought I was a good consultant, and it's very easy to think that in a big company when you've got 1,000 safety nets underneath you. But the real test is going out there in the world and testing yourself in the real live world with no safety nets. That's one part. The other part was I had a burning desire to prove to myself how well I could do in entrepreneurship. And that was something I always wanted to do, and the feelings just got stronger and stronger. And after I think about 7 years, I had made up the decision in my head that I want to be my own boss.
So you've obviously left the corporate world. That's one thing. But how do you decide what you want to do, when you want to start? How did that all come about?
Right.
Obviously, you've got the safety net of your financials. You're thinking, right, I'm
Yeah.
safe here. To take that step, I think you've taken it a bit too lightly, because a lot of people would not leave that safety net.
Yeah.
Essentially, the financial stability, to make that jump into the unknown is quite scary and daunting. A lot of people won't have the courage to do it. So what is it that's in you that made you do that?
That's a great point, Naj. It took me 2 years to make the decision. I have got a top tier dream job,
Yeah.
and I'm going to leave that to essentially run a restaurant.
No.
That took 2 years. Should I do it? Should I not? Should I do it? Should I not? Honestly, everyone around about me was fed up because I would be asking them the same question: should I do this or should I not?
Sorry to interrupt. Did you have children at this point?
No children at this point. I was married though.
Yeah. Because that adds a certain other pressure.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you've got to provide for your family. So again, a lot of people would just not take that risk because you're not young. You're not thinking, right, well, it doesn't matter if it doesn't work out. Here you are. You've got a wife to care for and to provide for, and you're still taking that plunge. I mean, that's admirable, in my opinion.
It took a phenomenal amount of courage to make the leap. And I would say for anyone thinking of leaving a job, don't just leave a job and start a business. That's the worst thing you can do.
Okay.
What I did was I was passionate about food. I would have cooking parties every weekend. I was really good at cooking. I would just be cooking non-stop. And see, when I first got married, my wife wasn't allowed in the kitchen for the first year.
You're the best husband in the world in that case then.
I used to cook all the time, right? And she used to be on the phone to her sister saying, yeah, this married life is pretty good. I don't need to do anything in the kitchen. So I was really passionate about food. And because I was passionate about food, it made sense that I operate in something that I was already very comfortable and very good at doing. So that's what I would say. If anyone is thinking of leaving their job, make sure you've got a passion that you've already mastered and you're already practicing before you actually leave your job. One thing, pardon me. The other thing, the other side to leaving your job is do the groundwork before you leave your job. So every weekend for 2 years, my wife and I would go back into the office and work on our business plans and our marketing, our PR, people management, our sort of temp, you name it, every single thing we needed to run this business effectively from day one, we had already done the legwork for upfront.
Okay.
So when we arrived in Hamilton to open up the business, we just unpackaged the business plan and just unleashed it, and it was an instant success. Everyone likes a slice of pizza, so let's start a company, and we started our own brand, Boss Pizza. And it was designed only to almost like supplement the income to the point where it would cover the loss of revenue from the restaurant.
Okay.
But it just took off.
So
it's fresh dough pizza. We had to do things to the same standard as Mushtaq's, which is very high. So we just can't churn out cheap crap pizzas. They have to be very, very good quality pizzas, fresh dough, fresh ingredients. And the business just took off. And then we thought, well, wait a minute, why don't we roll this out nationally? So we've opened up another branch. And then the last 2 years, we've spent creating the operating model, the franchise model, the national logistics model. So now we're at the point we're just about to launch the franchising sales nationally.
Amazing. So everyone can enjoy Boss Pizza essentially throughout the country. Fantastic. How do you handle recruitment?
We're in the customer service industry, so you need to recruit really nice people.
Yeah.
That's what we did. And then we would ask, have you got any other friends that you know that would like to work here? And our thinking was, if you take a nice person, the chances are they've got nice friends.
Correct, yeah.
So that was
a domino effect.
Yeah, that was one half of the recruitment strategy. The other half of the recruitment strategy was amazing. It was, we never actually held an interview for 9 years.
Wow.
If anyone wanted a job, we would say, Naj, okay, you want to work here, that's fine. We've got a job, it's only for 3 weeks, and that job would be to lift takeaways from the kitchen and walk down to the front desk, which is like, that's almost like a 100-foot walk, and then back up to the kitchen, pick up the next order, bring it back down, and just do that the whole night.
Like a yo-yo.
It was called the sprinter role.
Okay.
But the amazing thing is, in that one simple task, we could tell more about their energy, their effort, their work ethic, how their eye contact is, how they engage with the rest of the team, how they engage with the customers. I could tell more about them doing that simple task of running up and down than I could in 1,000 hours of interview.
I absolutely agree with you on that, because this is what I always tell my own staff, whoever takes it on board at least. I always say it doesn't matter what job you do, you could be a cleaner.
Yeah.
You've got to make sure you're the best cleaner, because not only does it come into how well you do your job, but it tells you so much about their personality.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. So when I left school, I literally knew I was going to college. So I had 6 weeks of holidays. And I always tell this story because this should be an example really for other people to pick up on if they want to set themselves apart from the rest. Went to work for JD. I knew I was there for 6 weeks, went through an agency. Everyone was there through agency, and they all just want to pass time, take it as easy as they like, have a little conversation here and there, not interested. But I was never like that. I was relentless. I was at the top of the table all the time. All we had to do is put price labels on. But my mentality was totally different. I wanted to be the best at whatever I do.
Good.
So I always ensured we used to have a batch and you used to write your name. So at the end of the shift, obviously you always knew who was at the top. I always used to be at the top.
Good.
Within 3 weeks, at the age of 16 or whatever I was at that time, I was doing stuff what supervisors who had been for years were not doing, because the managers of other departments saw what I was doing, took me away from there and put me in a totally different place where we were doing forklifts, so not forklifts, pallet trucks and scanning gun stocks.
Yeah.
And they actually grassed on us. They actually said, what are they doing there? They shouldn't be there. But the point was, I knew I was only there for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So I couldn't care less if they liked me or didn't like me. But that's not the point. The point is, whatever you do, I believe you should always give your 110% commitment, if not more, because ultimately, you want to satisfy yourself. You want to set yourself apart from the rest. And it's very easy to do that. And I think the culture nowadays, from what I see, people just go through the motions. They don't set themselves apart when it's very easy to do. And if you do that, you will get seen by CEOs, founders. They'll appreciate that and you will escalate up the ladder.
Exactly.
But I think people, to be honest, just neglect that. And they just, like I said, go through the motions.
You're right. You know what? I've got a large team. And every week I speak to my senior managers and I ask them who are the top performers and who are the bottom performers. I get them to ladder the team. So if you're working for me, sometimes I'm not in the business on the front line. Sometimes you won't see me for weeks on end.
Yeah.
But I still know who the top performers are, because I make a point of asking my managers, right, who are the superstars and who are the guys that need to improve.
Yeah.
So even if you're working away in a place and you've not seen me or you've not seen the boss, I still know like what your performance level is. And I think you're right. There are even the menial jobs. There is a huge opportunity to actually demonstrate your work ethic, your commitment, your speed, and what a great employee you are. And I think people underestimate that.
Would you say an academic background now holds the same weight as it did 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, to what it does today?
So,
does it help you, do you reckon? If you went to work somewhere, do you reckon it holds a lot more weight when you go for interviews? Would you say it really helps you? What's your thoughts on that?
Okay, there's two schools of thought on this that I've got in my head, right? One is university education. Do you know what it does? University education gives you a sense of confidence that you can, I can operate at any level. I have got a friend of mine and he never went to university, and he says he always feels a little bit intimidated when he speaks to sort of professionals and he knows they've got university education. He suffers from imposter syndrome.
Okay.
So is it valuable? I think for your own confidence and your own sort of, I suppose, credibility point of view, yes, it's important. But I think in today's economy, it's all digital. Like half of these people doing YouTube and podcasts, and I don't think it's as necessary as it once was.
I agree with you as well. Yeah, I definitely think it gives you confidence.
Yeah.
On top of the confidence, I think the way you carry yourself, a lot of the times you can see that in a person.
Yeah.
He's well educated, well spoken, or the way his mannerisms are. So I think it definitely helps you. Maybe even subconsciously.
Yeah.
You may not even realise you pick these things up, but I think it definitely helps you for sure.
Yeah.
But I agree with you also. I don't think it holds the weight it did at one point because of people just self-learn now. You know, why are you going to pay whatever the fees are now, £10,000? I don't know if they're free in Scotland, but obviously in England it's £10,000 a year now. So it's an extraordinary amount of money. Before you leave uni, you're £40,000-50,000 in debt with your maintenance loans, trying to survive. So it's ridiculous. To get that money back, God, you could probably pension age before you will pay it back. So I think time's moved on. A lot of people have got access to YouTube, great platforms. I learn so much from YouTube. I love it. I'm literally walking, talking TV around the house. I don't watch dead TV. So I literally have YouTube on, earbuds in, and I'm always learning something new because for me, that's what excites me. And I think now that the world's just changed. Before you used to rely on people for expertise or you wasn't sure, but now you can get at the fingertips. Put a search in, find out what you're looking for, and you've got the whole world in front of you.
Interesting. You mentioned the words TV there, right? I think TV is going to die, and I think anyone working in TV at this moment, TV agents, presenters, producers, I think they're all in trouble. And the reason being, I'm just a regular guy with a regular family, a wife and 2 kids. Sometimes we can go for days without switching on the TV. And that would never have been the case a few years ago. So I think there's going to be a major shift. It's all like this, like we're producing our own content. You know, this is, we control what we want to do and what we watch. So how is it in your house? I mean, do you find, are you watching TV as much as you used to, or?
I mean, I get forced to watch the TV, if I'm honest.
By who?
By the other half. But ultimately, I'm not a fan of dead TV. I don't mind watching TV if it's informative, you're learning something, but we do like to wind down. Everyone likes to wind down at the end of the night, maybe watch an hour or so. But it's not something at the top of my list, just watching Love Island, for example, right? Not interested. So I'd just like to, I do watch to wind down, but not consistently, like you said. It's just a case of, if we've got it on, brilliant. If not, forget about it. You know, we're watching something, or we're doing TikTok. You know, we're doing something where it's going to give us benefit. And like you said, the TV will die down, but I think that's why a lot of people now are creating their own brand. Because ultimately, that market's going to go. Even for advertising, the money that pays the TV is disappearing. It's going to all digital platforms. So there's going to be no TV left, like you said. So this is the new TV, essentially. We are the TV stars, apparently. But how does entrepreneurship, what was really different about it from your corporate world? What would you say one thing is extremely different? I know there's a handful, but just do one.
Right, I'll tell you something, right? I used to be a really funny guy until I started my business, right? I used to be light-hearted, always smiling, always up for a bit of fun, you know, carrying on. And the minute I started my business, it just
disappeared,
sucked the life right out of me. So entrepreneurship, it's like, I would say it's probably like 3-4 times harder than working in a top-tier job. And I can say that confidently because I've worked in a top-tier job for X amount of time, and I've also worked for myself as an entrepreneur for an equal amount of time. So I've got a point of comparison, and I can say it's so much more difficult working for yourself. There is no off button. You are on constantly.
In terms of the economy, what would you say? It's a bit difficult because I personally think business was a lot easier going back 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. I think there's a lot more opportunities. I think there was a lot more support from the government, I believe. What do you think where we are today? How do you think it's all planning out? What's your thoughts on it, where you see? Do you find it easy perhaps in terms of monetizing, or do you find it more difficult, getting harder, margins getting lower? How do you find it over the years?
I think running a business now in the UK is almost mission impossible. And the reason for that is there are so many taxes that we have to pay. And I think the government have been very clever. It's PAYE, or it's national insurance contribution, or it's VAT, it's corporation tax, it's like hundreds of climate change levy. It's like hundreds of little things. Like if you pay just for example, if you pay 1% tax on something, that's okay. But the trouble is, it's 1% here, 2% there, 3% there, 1% there, 2%. And the sum of all of that tax now is actually making it impossible to run a business successfully in the UK. And I think the companies at the top, the multi-million pound companies that avoid tax, you know, set up offshore, some of those companies can avoid millions of pounds. And then there's some companies at the bottom of the economy operate cash only. They can get away with it. So it's people in the middle that get caught and have to pay the lion's share of it, which I think is unjust.
It's funny you say that because my TikTok's full of that. I absolutely despise how the whole system works. Like you said, the ones that can afford it, the corporations, the billions, they're registered elsewhere, don't pay no VAT, corporation tax, again, they invest elsewhere, so it's expensive. You know better than myself because you've got an accounting background. So for me, that's extremely frustrating. And when people say, is it fair? How can the hell can it be fair? When the people who can afford it, essentially, are just running away with it. But the people at the bottom, or in the middle, like you said, there's no way around it. We literally get stung from every angle. Every person is paying anywhere between 50 to 70% in tax. That's incredible. That's literally saying out of every pound you earn, 70% is going to the government. And I find that staggering. Literally, you got 30% for yourself, really. I think it's appalling.
It's insane. And the thing is, we let the government get away with squandering billions on just nonsense. You know, what was that? What was the name of that hill that they made in London? This mound, the £14 million for a hill in a part of London, and then within a year they shut it down. You know, the public officials, the politicians, the public servants need to be held accountable to that. That's £14 million. Imagine if we
did that, yeah.
Imagine if we scammed someone out of £14 million, we would be in jail. But if public servants do it, it's okay. All right, yeah, we made a mistake. Yeah, bad judgment.
That's what I don't understand about the population, and unfortunately, I can't get my head around it. So a lot of people complain about the NHS, but then they're complaining at the wrong people. They literally have no clue or no idea or no perception of actually who's to blame. They literally blame the people, let's say, who are not working. They have a right to all these services. This should be a basic human right. So the fact that you're penalising or putting your blame on, or even immigrants, refugees, not understanding, like you just said, they spend millions and billions in failed contracts, giving contracts out where they're getting charged excessive rates. None of that is accountable. And I find that staggering because, like yourself, in business, what's the first thing you do? You make sure your wastage is the lowest possible.
Yeah.
And that's without any accountability because ultimately it's your money.
Yeah.
But this is other people's money, the population's, the taxman's money, the tax people.
Yeah.
And they just let off scot-free. Every 4 years they disappear into their other lucrative job. Yeah. It's criminal. It's absolutely criminal in my opinion.
Going back to the tax thing, I think the tax system in the UK needs to be a lot fairer. And the way it would be fair is like this. This is how I would make it fairer. I would reduce the tax in the UK down to, say, 25%. Flat rate, 25%. No VAT, no corporation tax. None of this hiding behind all these different taxes. Have a flat rate. But the penalties for not paying it should be staggering. And what that does is that would mean all of the companies, big and small, pay. And I think the end result would be the government would actually be able to collect more tax.
But don't you think, I mean, I find it difficult to understand how politicians can take donations.
Yeah.
That's just another word for bribery, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, to be able to get donations off corporations, what's that telling you?
Yeah.
And we're supposed to be a democracy and a free society.
Yeah.
They're not giving you that money because they've got nothing else to do with it. They're doing it to give influence, to give, make sure you do what they tell you to do, essentially. And again, people oversee that. I find it shocking. So I agree with you. I actually will go one step further. I believe the tax system should be on how much you consume. So, for example, if you want a bigger house, you will pay more portion of it. Do you know what I mean? In that sense, so whatever you consume, the tax maybe goes up. But at the minute, it's back to front. Yeah. The people are making more, like you said, making more. They're getting away with paying nothing, and the ones at the bottom, they just can't. But I think it's by design.
Yeah.
Because if they did want to change it, they can, but they don't want to for whatever reason, and probably because them donations keep coming.
Yeah.
So that's where we are. Entrepreneurship is a very lonely place. How do you cope with that? How do you manage that?
How do you cope with being lonely? How do you cope with being lonely? That is tough. It is a very long and lonely road. For the first 6 years, I couldn't even take a day off. I worked 6 years straight without taking any days off or any holidays. So you're right. Your business does get to a point where the systems are mature. You put your system in, your management teams in, and then you can take a step back.
Have you ever had any partners, business partners or anything like that? Any experience of that?
No.
Well, you're lucky.
Why do you say I'm lucky?
I think partnerships can be very tricky.
Right.
I think there are a lot of challenges that come with that. When you've got one person making all the decisions, there's pros and cons to everything. So yes, the pros are you can make your own decision. There's no one to tell you not to ultimately. But I think there's cons as well because everything rests on your shoulders alone. You have no one really to have a conversation with and discuss situations you've never been in your life. You've got no idea. And entrepreneurship, every single day there's a different type of problem. Financial, staff, just a business in general, thinking of new business. So to be again on your own, it can be a very lonely place. You don't know which direction to take.
Yeah.
I think obviously with a partnership you have 2-3 brains you can pick from, different decisions, and you can come to a consensus. So but at the same time, if you have disagreements, it can turn into a very nasty Once someone's not pulling their weight, or
Yeah.
you feel like you're doing more, again, a bit of resentment could pop in. I think to be partners, you've got to have some certain type of skills which test your limits, because it's difficult. It's difficult because ultimately you're on the same page in terms of level and hierarchy. So it's whoever gets their way, essentially, in most cases. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that. What would you say to that?
Yeah, one of the reasons I've been successful in business, I've learnt from the mistakes of my father, who was also in business. And the one thing, I've even put a video in this,
Yeah, I've seen that video.
never get family involved in business. So I've learned from that. Partnerships, it's easier just doing it yourself. It's less headache. It might be more difficult, but mentally it's a lot easier. You can make the decision and go for it. There's no consensus. There's no democracy where you need to get everyone's opinion. It's just like, if you make a decision, go for it.
But is that easier said than done? For example, I'm assuming you were probably financially stable when you started your business.
Yeah.
Would I be right? Now imagine not being financially stable, you're starting a business out. You do need that support barrier, I guess, at the start. Do you know what I mean? But I think what happens is, obviously over time, your personalities change, your work ethic changes, and I think that's where the problem comes in then. So if one or two are not pulling their weight and you are, then it comes to that point where you're not pulling this, and then it can get,
friction and tension, and that slows the progression of the building.
It affects the business ultimately. And I think that's why I believe we have to be very systematic in how we approach business, but a lot of people find that difficult because get emotions involved.
Yeah.
But I think you cannot have emotion in business. You need to be, even if that's against yourself, you have to be honest with yourself. And if you're not honest with yourself, you're going to struggle. I think if you think you're slacking or you're not performing so well, you need to be open and be able to admit that yourself as well, and then step aside or let someone else progress and go further. Do you know what I mean? You can't. The same people who start can't stay at the same level, in my opinion, most times, because everyone changes. So I think that's a big challenge in itself.
Yeah.
What question would you have for me?
What question do I have for you? Right.
If any.
Right. Talk to me about being born with a silver spoon in your mouth.
Oof, never had one, so I don't know. I've come from very rough estates. Had a very difficult childhood. What I mean by that is always a struggle. Never been in a situation where, you've been comfortable, you've had rosy years, worked 7 days a week. I started working at the age of 7, for example. Literally we used to have stores, normal, convenience stores. So it started very early on, understood how essentially money works and all the rest. I think now, to be honest with you, people come to 16, 17 and they still haven't got a clue about how money works. And of course, the school system doesn't tell you that either. They tell you everything else except how tax works, how money works, just throw you out into the world. So for me, there was no silver spoon. It was everything I did, I had to earn it. And to be honest with you, I guess that's what makes you. So I'm happy that was the case. Because the resilience you get, the determination you get, and to be honest, I think you have this problem as well, is I call it OCD, and I think you've got that, is when you need something done, your mind is very methodical and this needs to be done in a certain way. You need systems in place. And I think to be a successful entrepreneur, you definitely need that mindset. You have to be very focused, very system orientated. And if you, again, come back to partners, if you don't have partners on the same wavelength, that can cause a lot of issues because they're holding you back. The business is getting held back and ultimately you become frustrated. So again, going back to silver spoon, I think having money can also ruin you because if you have money, you don't understand the value of money. If you're given by your mother, father, X amount of money, very few actually go on to a real success, their own success, because they don't understand, they don't undervalue that money. If it disappears, mummy or daddy will give you some more money. So I think that is, and I think that's why a lot of entrepreneurs are immigrants, because they've gone through the hardships of coming into an unknown place with not knowing anyone, not knowing the system, not knowing the language, and then just having to fight through. And I think that's what entrepreneurship is, if you want to summarize it in a nutshell, is hardship. Because, and when you come out the other side of hardship, even then it's not guaranteed for success. But if you put the hard work in, you've got that little chance of getting that success.
It's good. So
what about in your case?
Me being born with a silver spoon in my mouth? Right. Okay, so I was working in my dad's restaurant, and I think some of the staff used to say, "Oh, it's all right for you being born with a silver spoon in your mouth."
So was your dad fairly successful?
Yeah, he was okay. My dad, I mean, he had a restaurant. Him and his 4 partners had like 4 businesses. They had a couple of shops and a couple of restaurants. And I remember the staff used to say, "Oh, it's all right for you being born with a silver spoon in your mouth." They used to sort of have goes, chat to one another. It's all right. Nothing could be further from the truth. As a son of an immigrant, we didn't have the birthday parties. We never went on holiday. I think I went to Pakistan once.
We all did, right?
Once in like 15 years or the first 12 years.
That's the only country we knew existed in the world, right? At that point,
and even then it wasn't a holiday. It's because the parents had to go back and see their family. So there are no parties, no holidays, no fancy gear, no Adidas or Nike tops or whatever the jeans of the day were. No computers, no games. And honestly, it was pretty tough. You had to make your own entertainment. You had a ball or badminton or something. It was pretty basic. And I do remember people saying, "Oh, it's all right for you being born with a silver spoon in your mouth." Nothing could be further from the truth. And now, like as an entrepreneur, whatever money my dad made, he didn't. All entrepreneurs are the same. You make money. You don't go and spend it on a lavish lifestyle and flash the cat. Okay, some people do. But generally, when you're starting a business, you make the money and all of that money goes back into the business and it leaves nothing. And that's the environment I was brought up in. My dad was a businessman, my dad was an immigrant. And if you're coming from abroad, your mentality is you're here to make money. You're not here to bloody waste money on nonsense clothes or designer clothes or anything. So there was this relentless pursuit of saving money and sending it back home and building a better life for yourself.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. What would you give any advice for your younger self? Sorry, let me just go back actually from that. Did you mention when you left school or college, you didn't go to higher education for 4 or 5 years?
Yeah.
And then you went to uni?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I left, and this is the thing.
You didn't think you was too old at that point? Because a lot of people get to 21. What was you, 23, 24 then?
21.
21.
I went to. So I left school with no higher education. And the worst...
How were your grades in school? Fairly decent?
They were okay.
Okay.
And the reason for that is it wasn't because of my intelligence or ability. It was all to do with motivation. So for example, I remember O grade geography, nimbus, cumulus, clouds, all that stuff. I was rubbish at it.
Yeah.
So it was all to do with motivation. I just didn't have the motivation because I was feeling a little bit lost. How can a 16-year-old decide what they want to do for the rest of their life? Yet society puts all, what do you want to do? What do you want to do at university?
Yeah.
How's a 16-year-old kid in Hamilton supposed to know?
Yeah.
So I just felt so much pressure. My brother he was studying medicine. My sister was studying medicine. I just felt all this pressure and I just didn't like it. I just didn't like being forced into doing something I didn't want to do. So I left. And then when I went back to study, and then I worked in the restaurants I worked in my dad's and uncle's restaurant for like 4 years. You just get treated like a loser,
Did your parents think you were kind of a failure, or did they support you in that then? Because you just mentioned your siblings now, and you mentioned they did medicine.
Yeah.
Wow. That's even more pressure.
Oh, they properly think. No, they don't say it because you would never say it. But they say, it would have been good if you studied. It would have been good if you went to university. I think they could see the difference between me and the people around about me. They're all studying law. They're studying medicine. They're studying dentistry. And I'm working in a restaurant. So from that, I think they felt quite good. But
did it not bother you?
It started to bother me because I knew inside I was
could do a lot better.
I was much more than that. Yeah. And then I was watching this TV program. And they were profiling these like city bankers in London, and they were all earning £50,000 a year. I thought, bloody,
I'm missing out on this.
That's mega money.
Yeah.
That's 30 years ago.
Yeah, wow.
And I thought, you know what? I bet I am just as smart, if not smarter than all of those guys. And I thought the only difference is you're there and I'm here. What do I need to do to get over there? So I thought, right, I need to go to college, get my grades, get to uni, and then get a top tier job. And that's exactly what I did. That one little snippet in TV completely transformed my life. And talking about geography, when I went back to study a higher geography at college, the teacher was amazing. But I remember for like one of the prelim exams, I got 100%.
Wow.
And the same subject in school, I couldn't be bored with it. And it was all to do with motivation. Okay, she was a good teacher, but my motivation was there. I used to turn up to the school, sit at the very front row, and I used to say to the teacher, right, I used to say in my mind, teach, right, come on, I'm ready. Forget the chit chat. I don't want to know what anyone did at the weekend. Let's get this geography done. That's what my attitude was like in college. And what a transformation. And it's all because I had that spark and motivation to achieve something much bigger than what I was at that time.
Was it to prove a point?
Prove a point to myself.
Okay.
I wanted to prove a point to myself that I'm actually much more than what I am. And I had it inside me, and I think a lot of people have got that. They've got that something inside, but it's quite difficult to get out there and express it or have the opportunity to express it in a way that benefits them.
So what would you say was your biggest achievement in that case?
So my biggest achievement, I think, I worked for Accenture. That is something else. I mean, back then, to get a job.
How did you get into there?
Well, so Accenture was my dream job, right?
Yeah. So you set your mind onto that. I want Accenture.
The only reason I wanted to work for Accenture is simple. I looked at the Sunday Times 100 list, and I thought, who is the number one company? At that point, it was Accenture was the number one employer for the last 5 years. And I thought, if we're football players, you want to play at the top of the Premier League. Yeah. That's where I want to operate. Wow, okay. Their starting salary back then, 20 odd years ago, was 38,500. Phenomenal, so much more than anyone else. So I thought that's where I want to operate, at the top company. So getting into Accenture was just amazing. And I went to I think I went to about 7 or 8 interviews just to practice. So my first interview with Vodafone, that was pretty rubbish. My second one with Barclays was better. My third one with Ernst & Young was better, and gradually it got better and better and better. And I wanted the job with Accenture, so I set that interview up for the very end. So by that time, I'd already been through the interview mechanics and thinking and chat a number of times. I was slick by the time I got the Accenture interview, so I think I must have performed all right to get the job.
That's remarkable.
Yeah. And then my other biggest achievement was to take a little takeaway a little restaurant in Hamilton, start a takeaway business and turn it into the biggest takeaway in Britain. And I built the biggest takeaway kitchen as well, which is just on the other side of the car park there.
When you were growing up, did you have any role models? Anyone you looked up to, even an entrepreneur perhaps, or maybe someone else outside of that field that you kind of thought, oh, they're interesting, or I want to follow them, or you're really interested by them? Anyone in particular that we know of? Personality?
Not really. But remember back then, that was like I'm 47 now. Back then, you watched Blue Peter.
4 channels, right?
4 channels.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and Panorama. Bloody hell.
Yes.
So now you've
Crime Watch.
Yeah. Right. Now you've got access to a whole
personalities now.
Right. Okay, you can watch Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Right, let's watch. I don't know. Let's watch Steve Jobs' inspirational creation of the iPhone. Now the youngsters have got so much more that they can look at. But back then, I don't think I had many role models. There were none. And even the media channels, all the TV, there wasn't much on TV. What about yourself?
Well, to be honest with you, I've got a very short attention span.
Right.
So the only thing that's ever interested me is entrepreneurs. I don't know what it is. I think it's just a rag to riches story. I love it. Mm-hmm. So obviously Dragon's Den came on. Brilliant. Yeah. Absolutely. I was hooked on that. So I read everyone's book. I knew their life stories inside out. James Caan, Peter Jones, Theo Pathita. That's the only thing I read. If you go in my house, that's the only books I've got. No Roald Dahl business. That's it. But the best book I ever read, and I had really admired him at that point, was Lord Alan Sugar. The reason I really liked him was a lot of things he said. Obviously, you grew up with Sky.
Yeah.
You grew up with that, so you resonated. You understood. Oh, that's his journey. He literally built a Sky dish by looking at a dustbin, and he said, "I'm going to build a dish just like that dustbin." And the journey he went on. Nowadays you can go across the world to China. You can do it's at your fingertips. But the way he did it at that time, when no one used to do it, went to manufacture, and how he manufactures first, Amstrad. It's that thick, the book. That thick. I literally completed the whole book within 4. I'll read something and then forget about it and then come back to it. No, in I think 3 or 4 days, I blasted through that book. Every moment I got, it was hooked. I don't know what that's the best book I've ever read. If you want to read a book, that is the book to read.
What's it called?
Just Alan Sugar's biography. I can't remember his full title now, but it's fascinating. I love it because, like I said, I think the reason why was this, and the other reason was I'm very direct.
Yeah.
I say things out, and he also is very similar in that sense. You know, he doesn't care. He doesn't care about BBC. He'll just say what he'll say. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's changed now with censorship, whatever, but at that time he was just raw. And I love, and again, he was in football, involved in Tottenham, so again resonated with me, football. So he was brilliant.
Yeah.
And how his relationship changed with Rupert Murdoch and his sons, that's very interesting as well, where they were both equal partners in a sense, and then he got left behind. I was thinking, wow, a person like him is even getting left behind by the Murdoch sons. They started to shun him away. I just found it fascinating. Okay. It's brilliant, and he just says it how it is. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's not, I won't say this and I won't say... No, it is what it is. Here you are. So for me, that was very, very... I just loved that. Good but book. Yeah, overall, entrepreneurs, I just love the stories. Yeah. And that's why I'm sat with you today, because I just love stories.
Yeah.
What about today? Is there any entrepreneur that you actually look up to today or you find fascinating today?
I think the obvious one is Elon Musk.
I knew you were going to say him.
I like the fact that he's a little bit different. He's not conventional.
Yeah, I agree.
And he's got the ability to really push the thinking. Obviously, he's trying to get to Mars or electric cars, or just really trying to push it. It's okay having an idea, but actually executing that idea is incredibly difficult, especially in the early years. Like, I would have imagined he's gone through a lot of difficulty and a lot of people saying, no, actually, I mean, can you imagine him saying to or the Mercedes executives or BMW guys saying, we've been manufacturing cars for not hundreds of years, but
a long
dozens
time.
of years. And what do you know about it? So
exactly.
And I resonate a lot of that, like with the things that I wanted to achieve in my life. You just get so much negativity. But I think what he's doing is great. He's probably... my favourite. Another one was obviously Steve Jobs. He's passed away now.
Yeah.
But I think the way he's just changed the way that we live is just phenomenal. Yeah. How about yourself?
Elon Musk for sure.
Yeah.
If you look at his interviews, the passion he has, the work ethic he has, I don't think anyone. Jeff Bezos, I think he leaves them all behind when it comes to just raw. His story's incredible. I mean, the guy was not even a scientist. And he couldn't afford to get a scientist for SpaceX. He learned all of it by himself. Literally read every single book, and his brain's obviously on a different level to everyone else. Yeah. And he just absorbed it and put it into practice himself. At one point, he said, literally, this is the thing. This is where crazy people are crazy for a reason. There's one point in his life after, I think, 2008 when the financial crisis happened, and everyone just said to him, his financial team, they said, you have to choose one company. It's either Tesla or SpaceX. Because his SpaceX was on the 4th launch, and if it failed, everything would go. So he said, choose one. And he just said, I'm going to choose both. We're going to go with both, and if it means it fails, they both disappear.
Yeah.
And thankfully for him, it was a successful launch. But again, that conviction, how many people would actually do that? They say, you know what, calculate risk, or let go of one, carry on with the other.
Yeah.
Again, he started PayPal. And with all that money, all the capital he made, he could have gone into the sunset on the beach and enjoyed life. But no, he put all of that money back into a new business. Like you said, no experience in that sector, but just went for it, and look where he is today.
Yeah.
I think it's remarkable. I think he's just miles apart from the rest. And like you said, he's unconventional. He speaks his mind. He doesn't suck up to the government, which is always good to see. He says what he believes. And I think people like that are very rare. Very rare, especially in today's society, who everyone wants to be loved by, the corporations. I don't think he cares, really. He just says what he wants to say, and he does what he wants to do.
Yeah.
So he's remarkable.
The other entrepreneur I really admire is Jeff Bezos. And the reason for that is he has directly benefited my life massively.
Okay.
Like, just look at this studio, for example. Everything in here was bought from Amazon.
Yeah.
Imagine going back, 10 years ago, like, I need to get a microphone. Where do we get a microphone? Where on earth do you buy a microphone from? I need to buy a tripod stand, right? I need to go into Glasgow. or where do you buy these sound absorber
to
thing?
one place.
So, and it's just the fact that it's
next day
delivery.
Yeah.
And in my business, it's all about systems, processes, consistency,
speed,
efficiency.
Yeah.
That's what the customer wants. But so I do that in my business, but he does it on a
different level,
on a mind-boggling whole different. He does it on a whole different level, and I really admire that.
Yeah, I guess I'd have
But
to.
he gets a lot of stick though. He's a billionaire, and I don't know what it is. When people do well, they start to get stick. It's almost as if you're not supposed to do well. You're supposed to try and do well.
Yeah.
But then when you do well, we don't really like it very much.
Haters. I guess. Yeah.
Do you know I bought a Bentley, right? This is about 6 years ago. I bought a Bentley, right?
Yeah.
And for the first 3 months, I parked it around the back of my house. I had a drive at the back of my house where no one could see. For the first 3 months, I parked it around the back of my house, and it's almost like I was scared to take it out because Mercedes BM is quite attainable. There's quite a few of them, but a Bentley Mulsanne is like slightly different level.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't know what it is about the UK. We just don't seem to embrace success.
Yeah.
Why is that? Whereas I think
is it because there's too much of a gap between the people?
I don't know. Maybe it is, or maybe it's just...
So resentment, jealousy comes into it, whether we want to believe it or not. That's what comes into it, because you think, why am I not there? I can never get there. Is there just too much of a gap? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but the playing field, we all start
the same place. Yeah. That's true as well.
Yeah. Honestly, if people aspire to being an entrepreneur, they don't know what they're letting themselves in for. Honestly.
What genre movies do you like?
What genre movies do I like? I just like... I like all the sort of big films like Lord of the Rings, Batman movies.
All right.
I'm not like a posh movie guy where I'd come up with something quite, unusual. I just like the regular sort of mainstream films.
What are your future plans? What is it you want to now? You've obviously succeeded and had a lot of success. What is it you really want to see now, next 5 to 10 years of your life?
Right.
What
so,
direction?
In the next 5 to 10 years, I want to grow Boss Pizza to being a national brand. And the reason for that is simple. It's not about the money, it's about the challenge. Can we take this brand and make it national? And there's a certain business challenge in that, and that's what I like. I want to operate in a place where you're outside your comfort zone. It's a real challenge and it's a bit of a struggle, and that's a place where I thrive.
Are you not scared of your competition? Domino's, Papa John's, things like that. Does that not bother you? Does it not hinder you? Do you not think, how can I take them on? Can you compete with them? What's your mentality?
Well, you break down the problem. You break down the competition. If we're taking on Domino's nationally, we're not going to take on this massive corporation.
Yeah.
What we do is we do what we've done here in Hamilton. We open up a shop and there's a Domino's here. We compete toe-to-toe with them. Then we open up another shop. We'll compete toe-to-toe with them. Our pizzas are 40% bigger. Our price is 50% cheaper. And our target market is the Domino's market. Once you've had a Boss Pizza, why would you go and spend so much money in Domino's?
Yeah.
That's how we're winning the battle here. We're winning the battle in the hearts and minds of the consumer. And if we can do that in one place, in one town, we can do that in the next town. And then we'll do that in the next town and the next town. And that's how we are going to compete with Domino's.
Why the franchise model? Why not do it yourself?
Franchise model is a lot simpler and requires less capital. Whereas if you do it yourself, to roll out hundreds of branches, you need like millions and millions of pounds. So the franchise model is probably the quickest way to expand, and the nature of our business lends itself very well to the franchise model. Would you like to buy one?
We'll have to look at the figures. How much does it cost actually as a franchise to start on the journey?
Oh, so the franchise fee is only £13,500.
Okay.
And here's the thing, the royalty is fixed at £500 a week. Sorry, the royalty is fixed at £500 a month, which is very, very cheap. And it's not like the 8% of revenue. So if you're doing 20,000 or 15,000 or 30,000, whatever you're doing, you're paying a fixed fee of £125 a week.
So do you set it up and all the rest of it? Is that how you do it? Machines and everything?
Yeah, everything's set up. Okay. And the cost of kitting out a shop is anywhere between like 80 and about 120, 30,000. It just depends on the condition of the shop and size of the shop, of course. Yeah. So For that much money, you could have a really successful business, and the net operating profit is 19%, which is very, very good. So for a husband and wife team, that is a great option. They could earn good profit, and they could earn, a sizable chunk of the wage bill as well. So that's what we want to do, roll it out nationally.
Just going to wrap it up now. Thank you, Ajmal, for this brilliant conversation we've had.
You're welcome.
A lot of intriguing points on business and life in general. So I wish you all the best in, obviously, your franchise and going forward. And hopefully we'll meet again.
Yep, right.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.